For the first 2 months, I thought I made a terrible, terrible mistake. And if I'd have stayed traditional bike shop, I'd be bankrupt today.
We live in a crazy time with rising prices, tariffs, and AI. How will the bike industry and small bike shops survive?
Now I'm uploading my sales data and say, hey, ChatGPT, what are my best hours to be open as a bike shop?
In this video, we talk with Aaron from Go Grava, a bike shop in Reading, Pennsylvania, about some of his outside-the-box tactics to make it through this period of turbulence and disruption.
I think it's detrimental. It's detrimental to companies when you have that echo chamber because you don't see the future. You don't forecast the future well when everybody's thinking the same thing.
I think what makes Aaron's perspective different is his 20 years of military intelligence experience, his leadership roles at Sufferfest and Wahoo, and his willingness to adapt to the moving landscape. You're going to want to buckle up. This one is a good one. As you guys know, we are largely unsponsored and are able to only keep this going through literally sticker and merch sales and our Patreon. It's sort of like running a bake sale every single month for the last 7 years since I've gone full time. So if you're a fan of the channel or know someone who is, please consider picking up some merch in the store. We've got new hats that will hit the store this week, as well as new shirts and stickers. Our grips are back in stock, all sorts of good stuff. So with all that said, let's get into it. So Aaron, I've been super enjoying your YouTube channel documenting your bike shop journey. I feel like it's the most honest peek into what it's like to actually run a bike related business. What made you want to start a bike shop in the current climate?
Honestly, I didn't. That was my first thing, is I didn't want to do it. So going back, I wanted to kind of get some unique bicycles online, find some unique bicycle brands in the Americas, like Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue is you can't get access to pieces and parts unless you either have a warehouse or a bike store.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. And so my hand was forced because I didn't want to ship in bicycles from Latin America that are fully put together because there's tariff penalties for completed bikes versus non-completed bikes. And I was kind of, and because if you're importing to other countries, a lot of other countries have VAT tax, which you're probably aware of in Spain now, right? You're living in Spain. Yeah.
It's expensive.
There's a 19%. Yeah, it gets expensive. Like the iPhone's 19% more expensive in Europe. I know that because I lived in Germany 2 years. So, but yeah, I was, so if I was going to import SRAM into like Colombia or Peru, there'd be a 19% BAX plus the tariff tax in. So I wanted to build the bicycles, just get the frames in and build in the United States. And to do that and to get a SRAM account or other wholesaler accounts, you have to have a store or you have to have a warehouse where you're showing. Either way, you have to pay rent either way. So that's how it started. I didn't want to do it in 2023 because it just seemed like the bike economy was collapsing. And I figured maybe it'll recover in 2024, but we have not fully recovered yet.
Yeah. So was your original intent to start a bike brand with bikes from the Americas, and then you just kind of had to find the loophole to get it together?
Yeah. So originally the idea was to service the bike builders in the Americas, really. That's all it was. Like a kind of serve as a website, marketing company, service company, customer service company. I was thinking of doing something unique because I looked at, could I go to Taiwan or could I go to China or anywhere else? And that seemed like the easy route. But at the same time, I was like, it just seems like there's a lot of instability in the future. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of talk with AliExpress and Temu and Shein. Mm-hmm. And I was really worried that if I did go down the route of, Asian manufacturing, that I would start my business, it would get going, then boom, all these tariffs hit me as a small business, which is important to me. Like right back here, I have a bicycle frame from Peru, and we're doing a belt drive Shimano Alpine 11-speed hub with an imported frame from Peru, taking parts off a Surly Disc trucker. And that's the stuff I love doing, is building bikes. So I wanted to have part of that too, which having bike manufacturers in Latin America helps because I can import frames like that frame and fork. We sell for 750, which is very competitive with Surly.
Hmm.
And then the second thing I wanted to do is be an impact in my local community. And because in my lifetime of cycling, which I've just been cycling my whole life, it just seems like a lot of bike shops in the early days when I was riding just were more committed to community events. And as time has gone by, I've seen less of it. I don't know, less of bike shop and bike company commitment in the
Hmm.
grassroots efforts.
Hmm.
And so the second pillar of what we're doing here is just trying to be, an effective or a benefit to our community.
Let's talk a little bit about the bicycling manufacturing in the Americas, because I feel like that's not a topic that gets discussed a lot. Like,
Yeah, it's not discussed at all.
is it robust? Like,
Not
are there
very
many?
robust, very deep though. So you really have. So I flew to South America and I traveled all around, and I actually met builders, all types of builders. Now, two of the biggest manufacturers, one's in Mexico and one's in Brazil. I can't remember the names. The one in Brazil is owned by Pon Corporation, um, and they're really servicing Latin America. And then, but there's a lot of medium to small size builders that nobody's heard of in the United States that everybody knows in Latin America, like
Interesting.
Fabio Duarte out of Bogota, Colombia. They've been building bikes for 55 years. I mean, they've been working titanium frames for like 22, 23 years. And they're doing some amazing, amazing work out of Bogota, Colombia. So we work specifically with them to do custom frames. And then I found another builder in Peru, Merino.
Hmm.
Um, Very small shop, north side of Lima, Peru. Uh, just making his way through the market. He's been doing it 15 years, and he built that frame out there. He does very similar work to what like Surly bikes look like, um, and uh, and there are advantages of some of the South American builders. Now, I tested a lot of builders. I had them build frames for me. Um, there's another company, Scarab Cycles, out of Medellin, Colombia. I think more people have heard of Scarab.
Hmm.
Doing fantastic work. I mean, just amazing, like bicycle art. And when I seen this, I was just amazed, and I was like, I have to bring this to the United States. And the interesting thing is, if I have somebody come into my store from Latin America, they know Marino, they know Fabio Duarte, but it's just nobody in the regular cycling groups have ever heard of these names before.
Right.
So, yeah.
Where do you like? I've only heard of them through your channel. Like, where, like, if you're to associate like the quality of construction to a brand that like someone in the U.S. would know, like, what tier would it fall under?
Yeah, so Fabio Duarte, going to their shop and seeing their work, they're on a different level. I would say they're probably like their titanium work is just as good as Moots. Like
Hmm.
they do custom anodized work. I had an aircraft engineer come in and inspect the titanium welds, and he said it was the best welds he had ever seen. And you can see their work on FabioDuarteBicycles.com, I think. And they do a lot of really unique custom work. And then the artisanship of the Colombians is next level. Like they
Hmm.
do next level bike design, like splashes of colors. They work in titanium, steel, stainless steel. Um, and they're even doing some carbon fiber work uh, of using lugs and carbon fiber. And I was just really impressed. And then not only that, they're doing carbon fiber repair because their paint work is so perfect. They had probably eight or $10,000 bicycles in their shop that they did carbon fiber repair on, like Giant Trek Specialized,
Right.
Cervelo, and you couldn't even tell there was damage. They showed me the before picture of like the seat post broken. They completely fixed it, matched the paint perfectly, and just the craftsmanship is just next level. So Scarab, I would say Fabio Duarte is probably the highest, and right next to that is Scarab.
Hmm.
and also Colombians. Just absolutely amazing artisan work, like true artistry
Yeah.
in a bicycle. And then below that, I would say you'd have Merino, which gets more into the Merino's focus is more affordability, like doing custom at an affordable level. So his quality would be right along with Surly. It's like Surly level using, 529 chromoly, which is easy to weld, easy to construct, easy to cut, things like that. So sort of your budget. So that which allows me to do something unique in the shop, which is to do custom geometry, custom frame at $750
Wow.
if
Yeah.
you can wait 4 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do those builders do they do like white label brands for other people, or are they just building under their own name? Or okay.
They tried before. So I think Fabio Duarte tried it before, white labeling, and then so did Marino. But they ended up getting burned,
Mm,
only because their white label work was really good, but then demand exceeded what they could produce.
mm, mm-hmm.
And they're not in a position where they want to build like these big factories. That's not the kind of bike building they're doing. That would take an investment, and they would have to agree to it. So the white label, they don't do white label work anymore because it becomes overwhelming for them because the quality is high. And then if you have a cool name and you have a cool design, it's just going to take off, and they
Right.
won't be able to handle that. That they could, like Fabio Duarte could probably handle 12 bikes a month
Mm-hmm.
max.
Right.
And so that's why I was like, okay, if I'm going to do Fabio Duarte, and Marino's the same way, if I'm going to do it, it's just really just custom work. And
Right.
I'm just the person facilitating it and bridging the language barrier and providing the warranty service, and just bridging that gap for them.
So one of the things that really drew me to your channel is I feel like you have a different background than other people that start a bike shop. Usually, yeah, I feel like it's bike shops are started by super passionate cyclists, but don't have any business savvy, and it's more like a in some ways like a lifestyle choice. But your background's different. Can you explain what that was and like how that informs your decision making?
Yeah, I have a complex background. I was 20 years in the Marine Corps. 20 years in the Marine Corps, spent a lot of time in the war, and then left that. And then I was a stay-at-home dad for 3 years to a 3-month old, 17-month old, and almost 3-year-old girls. And I was
Mhm.
so naive. Like, and that's the thing about me is I kind of do dive head into things, but that was the second hardest job I ever had besides being in combat. Like,
Mhm.
being a stay-home dad it was difficult. During that process, I wrote a blog, and then I got so lucky, I hit the lottery. I was doing Sufferfest, which is a training app. We had a training app, the Sufferfest videos, indoor training. And David McQuillan, the founder of Sufferfest, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I need some help running customer service. Would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Oh my God. Oh my God." David McQuillan emailed me.
Yeah.
And it was like for me hitting the lottery because that guy was so smart and so patient with me. Because the other problem I had is coming off the military and working as a regular person on the civilian side was very difficult for me. I had to have, the adaptations I needed to do. It was just different work environment. And David led me for 3.5 years through that process and had lots of patience with me. And 3.5 years there, I became the chief operations officer of the Sufferfest app, Sufferfest business, because I had a lot of high level training in operations, and I worked within intelligence community. Now my degree is in meteorology, so I was a meteorologist. That was my primary job, but within the realm of meteorology is within a segment of intelligence. So I had other jobs. I was a regular intelligence officer for a while, basically just collecting data and giving
Mhm.
briefings and stuff. But David decided we needed to level up, so he accepted an offer from Wahoo to be purchased, and then we moved into Wahoo. I helped transition the team. to help create the Wahoo X app. And then again, here I am talking to Chip Hawkins, over a beer, like at Wahoo, going to professional races like the Tour Down Under, meeting all these real live cyclists that I'd always seen on TV. It was like I hit the lottery.
Right.
Um, it was just absolutely amazing. And so I worked on my MBA, never finished it, but being inside the industry gave me a lot of insight into some of the things I don't think a regular bike shop sees. For instance, one of the things I think people take for granted is that since these bike companies are moving to online sales, which is something Wahoo did, like Wahoo's manpower for just serving online only for customer service is like 30%, 25, 30%. It's a huge cost center uh, doing quality level customer service. So that informed me. But then even then, I went through and looked at starting a bike business, and I'm like, man, this is not going to make me a lot of money. But I did it anyways because I feel like I can do something different, because I think now with this disruption we have in the bike industry, there's a chance to turn bike stores into mobility stores and not really look at it as just bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
We make a lot of money doing e-scooter repair and e-bike repair and even the cheapo ones. But yeah, that background informed me of what the cost structure was of everything, where everything was being manufactured, how you move everything to the different regions where you're going to sell, how you
Mm-hmm.
have to warehouse in different regions, even boxing, even accounting rules, paying your taxes in Europe if you're selling trainers in Europe. There's all these different. And I had exposure to that as the lead product manager at Wahoo. So I was, for a short period of time, over cloud, and then the Wahoo cloud system, which everything is, it's sitting over the top of all their bike computers, watches, and stuff like that, helping with that, and then helping build the Wahoo X app. And yeah, it was like I hit the lottery when I got those two positions, one at
Yeah.
Wahoo, one at Sufferfest. And because it gave me so much experience and so much insight into the cycling business, even though they weren't building bicycles, but
Right.
just into the hardware and software side.
Like there's two things you said that I feel is like different from other bike shop owners I've spoken to. One is that you're open to adapting,
Yes.
that you're not entrenched in like, this is a traditional bike shop. This is how we've always done it. It could be, either your training has taught you that you have to adapt, or you're relatively new and you're just feeling out the market, but you're open to pivoting from just bikes and taking, scooters and e-bikes more seriously.
Yes. Yes. Without a doubt. It is, because let me give you some examples. So I was initially thinking traditional bike shop when I opened, but you do have to pivot. You got to adapt. And if I'd have stayed traditional bike shop, I'd be bankrupt today. There's no way. I didn't sell enough bikes. Now, we did 500, probably I fixed 500 bikes this summer, and I learned a lot. But it just, if you ignore e-bikes and scooters and all these adaptive equipment, if you just try to pigeonhole yourself into just like high-end mountain biking or something, I just don't think you're going to make it in this new market, because this new market's getting complex. And when you get so many phone calls of people asking you if you can fix their e-scooter, and after I said no like 5 times, I'm like, okay, bring it in. Let's figure it out. And then I hired somebody to work with me who is a somewhat of an engineer and electrician, and we went through it and figured it out. And we're the only bike shop servicing these kids' e-scooters. And it's not just kids. Like, we have freshmen at Penn State, which is a 2.5 hour drive, coming to my bike shop to get a tire changed because they have a flat, because the bike shops at Penn State won't touch them. And there's this huge niche market that you can pull in with these e-mobility devices. And I hear what normal cyclists say about e-mobility. Like, they don't like it, they don't want it. Believe me, I had the same thoughts. Like 2018, I was in Reno. We were at the Interbike thing in Reno. I think one of the last ones they did in the USA. They had an outdoor exhibit of e-bikes. I was laughing. Why do you need an e-bike? You, that's not how you're supposed to ride bikes. And then in
Right.
2021, I rode my first e-bike and I was like, oh, these are really fun. As we can see, the market's up hundreds of percents with e-bikes because it's pulling in a new demographic and they actually are fun.
I think you made a video on hiring a new employee and kind of what skill set that they would need in this modern age of and a bike shop or e-mobility shop 3.0. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's really different because like when I was amateur working on bikes 20 years ago, man, easy. I think easy, but now it is so complicated. You
Hmm.
have not let's just forget the e-bikes for a second. Like you have SRAM, electronic shifting. You have SRAM XD, SRAM XDR free hubs. You have Shimano. You got Shimano's Di2 system. You have applications on the back end of these systems. Then you go into e-bikes and you have to be certified in Bosch, Bazawa, Bafang, Yamaha, like
Hmm.
Shimano, like all these certifications in this very complex network of equipment. And then you bring in scooters and then the cheaper e-bikes people buy from Amazon, and you have to have a general electronics background. How do you test a cable for liability? Or do you just hot swap componentry? How do you pull apart an e-bike motor, a rear motor? How does that gearing system work? Can we do any maintenance on the computer boards, which we can't because we don't do computer board or chip maintenance in the US anymore. There's nobody, those old TV repairmen all went out of business when TVs were like $300 now. So, uh, so you have to have a level of depth with the using a multimeter, just something like a multimeter, which most people, I don't know how to use it.
Hmm.
Like Aaron's trying to teach me. It's Aaron and Aaron, the other Aaron. But yeah, I'm not that good in the electronic side of things. Besides the plug and play stuff. Like I can take things apart. I'm a great mechanic, but
Hmm.
testing wires and soldering is not something I do. So yeah, it gets really complex really fast. But I think if you want to be a mobility store, you have to think about that. You really do, because you're missing a big part of the growing market.
I feel like your attitude in being open to that pivot is is what's keeping you alive. I can totally see like a shop that's entrenched in this is this is what the bicycle is, or it's been doing it for so long. Especially in this climate, they probably don't have the headspace to think that far ahead. That our next hire should probably be versed in electronics and other things.
I had this idea when I first opened the shop that if I was going to hire somebody, I'm going to hire a cyclist, hire somebody's really hardcore cyclist into mountain biking or whatever. That's not what I did. I hired somebody that just likes to casually ride their bike and doesn't really care about riding fast, but they're great at electronics. And so I had to change that viewpoint that because I've been part of bike shops before where everybody's like super hardcore riders and talking about the next $10,000 bike coming out and the new components and and that's just not what this bike shop is. Like I just don't see that as a not that I am a bike snob. I do love that stuff, but you have to be more inclusive. You
Yeah,
just absolutely have to have time for people who just like to casually ride. And then that was my first hire was somebody who just likes to casually ride and likes to tinker with e-bikes.
yeah. I do feel like that's been it's kind of like an endemic problem of the bike industry is that they tend to hire their own, and it's like an echo chamber, and that's
It
why
is.
they kind of fail to see like what's that the ground that's moving around them.
Yeah, it is echo chamber. I noticed that pretty persistently in the bike industry. The one of the and it was very apparent to me only because I was in the military. And in the military, you have a broad range of people, really broad backgrounds. But it comes out, you come up with the best ideas and the best solutions. The broader your base of ethnicity, background, how you're brought up, like you get a wide diverse of people together in a room and you come up with some fantastic stuff. But yeah, in the cycling industry, it can be an echo chamber quite a bit. I've seen that firsthand where they're just kind of pumping out like, yeah, let's build more, $15,000 bikes. Yeah. Where I'm looking at some new stuff from a new brand I hope to have talk about next week, where they have some really high quality $700, $900 bikes
Hmm.
that I want to stuff on my floor. And yeah, and I think it's detrimental. It's detrimental to companies when you have that echo chamber because you don't see the future. You don't forecast the future well when everybody's thinking the same thing.
So you opened up the bike shop. Like what were the things that you expected to happen, but it met with reality and you had to change?
So I opened it up. The people I knew in the community showed up. And the next day, I was pulling goose eggs. Nobody, nobody. For the first 2 months, I thought I made a terrible, terrible mistake. Like it was so slow. Nobody was coming in. I was getting really, really worried. And then once I opened up to e-scooters and e-bikes, and then once I think once my algorithm and Facebook changed, once I spent enough money with them, they started figuring out exactly who were the people that were going to come into my store. And I think that was part of it too, is I needed to spend way more money in marketing than I thought I did. That was scary. That was a scary 4 months, the first 4 months, because it was not looking good. Now, after that, I was like, okay, I can do this. This is feasible. Uh, we can do this. But boy, oh boy, that was difficult. The second thing I realized is that people buy brand names. Putting in Fabio Duarte frame into a bike shop or a Merino frame into a bike shop or even a Turn. I love Turn bicycles. They're so quirky, but they're so amazing. These little foldable bikes you could take on the train with you, or they're e-bikes, which are amazing cargo bikes, amazing cargo bikes. But nobody's ever heard of it. And if they haven't heard of the name, they're
Hmm.
really reluctant to buy into it. They're looking at Specialized, Track, Giant.
Right.
So that's unfortunately that's the behaviors of the consumer, which made the next part difficult. Is when I opened the bike shop, I figured it's like, here's a guy who has all this money saved up to spend. Hey guys, I want your bikes in my shop. Crickets. Nobody replied to my emails. Nobody wanted to talk to me. It was so difficult to set up accounts with these companies. Besides SRAM, SRAM was fast. Fuji SE bikes were pretty fast, but a lot of them just nothing. Like 4 months, 5 months. Even this big name brand took me 8 months to get them in the shop, which I'll
Wow.
have next week. Took me 8 months. Frustrated because I'm like, I have money to spend. Why don't you guys like me?
Do you have a sense why?
I think it's just they're operating how they've always operated. I don't think there's a sense of urgency. Well, okay, it's two parts. There's two models. There's a historic model where let's say you're a specialized dealer. And if you became a specialized dealer, they put a bubble around you. They don't want any other bike shop competing with you. And so you're protected. You're a protected dealer. Um, and I think there's still some of that going on in the bike industry. There's some brands that still do that. I was turned down because there's bike shops near me that have that brand. And they want to protect the dealers or not protected dealers, but it's like they select the dealers they want to work with. And if
Hmm.
they already have a dealer, well, we can't work with you.
Hmm.
That's changing rapidly. It's changing very, very quickly because now Specialized is selling online, Trek's selling online, like everybody's going online. And so that is changing pretty quickly. But I think they're kind of operating in this environment where there's just really no sense of urgency still within their sales staff. I don't know.
Hmm.
Uh, because I had money to spend and just I had a hard time getting people in. So
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe they had to lay people off and then now there's just not enough sales reps and they just can't do all the work that's out there. And that could be part of it too because of the bike recession. The other expectation I had as an amateur cyclist, I'd be a great mechanic. I knew it all. Little did I know that the $3,000 in tools I had was just a drop in the bucket for like the $15,000 I needed. Like all the bike industry, I am kind of a little upset about it. The amount of cassette and bottom bracket adapters I have, it's a box this big. It is
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. Um, and then things failing, that I, didn't realize would be high failure items when you're in a bike shop. You start realizing like, wow, didn't realize like the mineral oil diaphragms went out on the blade shifters so frequently.
Mhm.
And, and yeah, there's just a lot of tools and a lot of stuff. But now that I've gone through like 500 bikes, like I know that I'm a pretty darn good mechanic. I think if you're mechanically inclined, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't think you need bike school.
Yeah.
Um, if you're not mechanically inclined, you probably need bike school. But number four, uh, I had an opportunity. Have you ever heard of SC bikes?
Hmm.
Yeah. So like the Big Ripper, Big Flyer, those kids go riding around in wheelies and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how underrepresented BMX was in the market nowadays because I grew
Mm.
up with BMX, and
Hmm.
there's a ton of young men, young teens that are not being serviced in my area at all, which is great for me because I'm selling a ton of SE bikes uh, coming in. And I have these young men and women coming in from like 30, 40 miles to my shop because nobody wants the BMX kids in their bike shop for some reason.
Right.
And so that was surprising. I was like, wow, there is really nobody servicing this group, this segment of young men and women or even teens. And yeah, I was surprised about that. And then I haven't had these bad experiences with customers yet. I mean, I don't know. Like, I hear this thing like how not to piss off your bike mechanic, and I'm like, what
Right.
are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
don't bring in a dirty bike. Like, I mean, if it's terribly dirty, I'll just charge you $50 to wash it. Like, I don't
Right.
care. Like, like you don't have to tiptoe around me. Like, and here's the big one. I almost forgot. So besides that, how bad Walmart bikes are, Target bikes are, Dick's Sporting, it is really, really bad. I had no clue. Like, here's the thing: is this person who doesn't work on bikes, you say, "Oh yeah, okay, they're not great. They're heavy. They're clunky. The shifters are bad." No, they are so bad. Like braking after 150 miles, bearings falling out. Like the cassette on the back, brand new bike wobbling like this. So when you get up to the top gear, click, 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 click. Like, I mean, just these bicycles. Like, yeah, you can buy them for $300 at Walmart, but they're just using the old school loose ball bearings or ball bearing cages, and they're
Hmm.
not even in there correctly. And then when those cages fall apart, they're pushing out the axles. And I mean, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like shifters breaking after 30 days. And I keep telling people to take it back to Walmart. And they're like, well, no, can you fix it? And I was like, yeah, but it's like $200 for all the new parts. Well, I only paid 250 for the bike. And I'm like, I,
Yeah.
I got some Fuji's that are much better. It's almost a disservice what the big box stores are doing. And I feel bad. I try to work on them, but I've been burned so many times where I try to fix a bottom bracket and then it needs a new cup and cone system completely. And then I get it together and then it still falls apart because the tolerances are all out of whack. And now I spent 4 hours on a job that should have only took me 30 minutes. That was surprising on how really bad they were.
How old's your bike shop now? You guys haven't been there a year yet, right?
No, no. I opened March 23rd, I think. So I
Okay.
started the company January 2023 because I went after the online portion first. And just like I said, I couldn't do it because I just can't get access to parts. Nobody's going to allow you to start a bike shop, a real bike business in your garage. It's
Hmm.
just not the way the industry works. They do hold the keys to access to stuff, and there's a certain way they want things done. And so I had to play ball. But at the same time, now that I have a bike shop, I wouldn't want a bunch of garage bike shops popping up around me that don't have to pay rent like I do because this rent sucks. The overhead sucks. The rent
Yeah.
insurance sucks. You're making all this money selling bikes, doing repair work, and then every month your bank account takes a drain for
Right.
your overhead costs. And if somebody has a house with a nice garage, gets to do that without paying any overhead, well, I can't compete with that.
Yeah.
So so that's
What's your
kind of so now I kind of understand it.
what's your ratio of like product sales versus service? What's keeping
70
you?
to 30.
What's the 70?
70 is service.
Oh, up.
I am not selling a lot of bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that was so strange for me to adapt. Like I sold 3 times as many e-bikes as I did regular bicycles and e-scooters. That's just what people want right now. But what held my shop up is service work. And so I was doing some calculations trying to figure it out. And we open 7 days a week too. And I did that 7 days a week just so I could see what was the productive days, what was the non-productive days. Because most bike shops are open Sunday and Monday. I mean, closed Sunday and Monday. And I was like, well, is that really the best times? And because all the bike shops are closed Sunday and Monday, those are my best 2 days. And so why would I not be open those days and closed like Thursday now in the winter? But most of my incomes come from service work and parts replacements and things like that. And I was really surprised about that. I thought the split wouldn't be that big. I thought it'd be maybe 50-50, but I think in this economy, a lot of people bought their bicycles during the lockdowns and stuff. And now they're at the point where they need them repaired because the economy is not as good as it's just not great for a lot of people. And they're just trying to get their stuff fixed and still working. And they're not really looking at the new model bicycles
Right.
or buying a lot of new bikes. And so went around to a lot of bike shops too. And there's just a lot of inventory sitting around. There is some advantages. I was able to buy bikes at great discounts uh, because I didn't have a lot of bikes in the shop. So that was an advantage of being a new bike shop is I get some pretty good discounts because some of the bike brands are overstocked on certain models and stuff. Um, and then what else is it? And then I would love to do more. I would love to do fittings. Maybe go to Neil Henderson out of Boulder, Colorado, and see if he'd do a training course for me on fittings.
Yeah.
He was the coach of some professional cyclists. I would love to do that, incorporate that into Go Grava. So really just trying to split the line between the serious cyclist and just the casual cyclist, and then trying to make an inclusive bike shop for everybody.
It seems as if like a lot of those shops they're experiencing the most success in service. Now that online has been a thing for a while, that maybe being just a purveyor of goods, um, or just leaning on that leg of the stool isn't the best strategy moving forward. Like, how are you going to adapt your bike shop, and what does like a future bike shop model look?
Great question, because I thought about this and we're implementing it. A great bike shop is a bicycle shop that is very friendly. No matter how frustrated somebody is, figuring out how to work through that customer relationship with somebody who's frustrated and having issues and things like that. Without giving away things for free, of course, but being compassionate with people who are having issues with their bicycles, but then quickly turning around bikes. That's the other thing. Before I started my bike shop, I called around to all the other bike shops. 7 to 10 days was the turnaround time for a bike fix. I think if you could warehouse more supplies to fix bikes, even though that's terribly difficult, and turn things over same day or next day, huge competitive advantage in your market. Huge. If you could do it like a car repair place, like you check your car in the morning at the car mechanic, and then you pick it up after work. If you could create a bicycle repair model like that, where you're quickly turning around repairs for people, getting them back outside as quickly as possible without holding their bike hostage,
Right.
that's you're going to win customers. And if they're in your store, they're going to buy stuff. And that word gets around. I think that is the biggest thing you do is turning around service fast and then having competent mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have competent mechanics and you can't fix bikes and you can't figure out the intricacies of a triple front chainring,
Mm-hmm.
like you're you're in trouble because the word's going to get around. And but yeah, you got to have competent mechanics.
Your most recent video, at least I think it's your most recent video, was on the tariffs.
Oh
Um,
yes, yes.
and you had some interesting insights on how you think that might affect, bike shops or the potential for new bike businesses. Can you go into that a little bit?
Started doing my research before I started the business in October of 2022. You know, as you work in the bike industry, you start, if you pay attention, you could ignore all of the information. But I was just love this operational part, logistics part of any bike company of how you manufacture, how you get all of your stuff to the manufacturing facility. Where do you decide to box it up? How do those tariffs and import duties apply to your stuff? How do you get it in the container? How many things you can fit in a container? All those calculations. And because of AliExpress specifically, just dumping tons of cheap products into the US market using a 110-year-old law, postal law, which has a de minimis, a de minimis rule. Anything under $800 coming into the country doesn't have a tariff applied to it. And that's a lot of product. That's a lot of completed product. And it would have been feasible for me to actually start ordering bikes and then out of China and then just putting my logo on them and painting them here in the US. That was a feasible idea. But because there's no oversight or control on quality, and because I've seen all the battery fires in like New York City and all the laws against e-bikes, I knew that they were going to start cracking down on that de minimis, and I knew it was going to be probably lower. Not only that, because inflation was so high and because the economy was hurting, and I thought the political side could change pretty rapidly, which means there could be more tariffs coming in, targeted tariffs and trade wars. I think we could move to like what Reagan did in Japan in the 80s, which is just a whole auto tariff. Like, because Japan was crushing us with autos, like crushing our auto industry. They were putting out very high quality product and
Mm-hmm.
importing it into the US as a completed vehicle. And so we tariffed that. And then Toyota and Honda and all those, they brought in their assembly plants into the United States. So yeah, tariffs suck, but they also are historically, they are somewhat effective for longer term change. And so I just expect that possibly we could see a whole item tariff. But again, I'm guessing. Like a
Mm-hmm.
CEO of Specialized could tell me I'm completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all just threat tactics and this is what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But you could see a whole product tariff because, for instance, if I was to export something out of Colombia, exporting a bike frame, I believe, is a 15% tariff, and a completed bike is a 5% tariff. So there are differences in the tariff rules between completed products and parts of products. We could see something like whole product tariffs for a whole bicycle could have a 25% tariff. And a business may have to decide they have to ship all the pieces and parts into the United States and assemble it. And that's a lot of money. You got to warehouse it, and you got to hire all these people to assemble all these bicycles in boxes. But I'm a bike shop. I know how to build a bike. Why wouldn't you just get a box and put all the parts in, then I build a bike? Uh, that could be a cost savings. And some of the companies, I don't know what they're going to do. Like Canyon's only online. And yeah, they're only online. But recently they partner with REI because I think they're having customer support issues because of the manpower you need to provide quality customer service is very, very expensive. And one small recall or one problem on your bike or one issue at the factory with assembly, and you have to start now contracting out customer service centers to help you. But then you got to write them scripts, and it's not the best customer service because they really don't work for your company. And yeah, I could see whole product tariffs, and then possibly to avoid that, you warehouse it in the US, package it out, all the parts up in a box, send it to the bike shop. We assemble the bike. There was exemptions up until June, so that there was tariffs in place, but a lot of the bike industry, I think, got exemptions. I don't know the whole backstory, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
backstory with that about one company that filed for certain exemptions and it was approved and it kind of helped the entire bike industry. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those exemptions, they expired in mid-June, June 13th or 14th. So there is
Mm-hmm.
now 100% tariffs on lithium-ion e-bike batteries,
Oh,
which
yeah.
means if you import a $200 battery into the United States, you like me, go grab, I imported a 200, I have to pay the US government $200 tariff. And so that battery cost me 400 now.
Hmm.
And so some of those tariffs expired, which are, again, as somebody who's running a large corporation, it would be kind of frustrating because you just, at this moment in time, you don't know how to plan.
Right.
Like, you just
Yeah.
don't know what to do.
It just seems like it, at least in the short term, if whatever tariff gets in place, everything's going to be expensive. Like
Yeah, because
prices are.
that's what's going to happen. Yeah, initially, I mean, the
Yeah.
company in the US has to pay the tariff. Like when I imported that frame or a box of frames from Merino, from Lima, Peru, I paid tariffs on it. I paid duties on it. But yeah, if the tariffs go up, the companies are going to have to raise their prices. Uh, and that's going to raise the price of everything, you know, especially your bicycles and your bike shops. And I've already been told that. I won't say which companies or whatever, but some companies that I work with are trying to move their manufacturing out of China into Taiwan or wherever they can find it, really, because they expect, those tariffs to remain in place or get even higher.
Yeah.
And then if you're looking at Taiwan, like if everybody's going from China into Taiwan, you may not have enough manufacturers in Taiwan to service all those companies, or they charge a higher premium for their work. They have the ability to barter higher because there's such a high demand. And all of it just leads to higher prices.
Knowing what you know now, and since you've been open since March, if you had the hindsight's 2020, if you knew what you knew now, what would you do differently at launch?
And then you roll that business into bicycles to support that bicycle side of things. And then you roll that business into unique things that you love to do. And then you roll that into a brand. So I went completely reverse. I did that completely reverse. I went brand, unique stuff, bicycles, e-bikes. Terrible waste of money.
So you're kind of unique in that you've got a brick and mortar business, and you also have a YouTube channel. How does that fit in? Is it just event, or is it like a marketing thing, or what's the
Yeah, it's
relationship?
exhausting. It's exhausting. I'm nearly a one-man show on the leadership side and social. So I'm my own leader, I'm my own marketer, I'm my own social media manager. Luckily, I have experience in all that, so it wasn't difficult for me, but I use AI a lot to help me out with these things. So the YouTube side of things, I had a channel before. It's called Athletic Tech Review.
Mhm.
I shut that all down because I was offered a position as COO at the Sufferfest, but I was monetized and I was making money. But I felt like it'd be a conflict of interest in me earning on YouTube while also working for a trainer company. And I wanted to really focus on my job at the Sufferfest and at Wahoo.
Mhm.
So I know how it works. I know how difficult YouTube is. I know you just got to grind it out until you get monetized. Like I started in 2015, 16. It was much easier to get monetized back then. And it seemed like I grew quickly, way quicker than I did now. Like now it took me 250 videos for monetization. But I knew if you keep doing it, you're going to get better. You're going to find your audience and you'll get monetized. My plan is to use my YouTube monetization to pay my rent or do special projects. Like, why not? Right. I'm doing cool stuff every day in the bike shop. Like, I'm making a
Mm.
video with this Merino thing. It's an Alpine 11 hub. It's a Gates belt drive system. I love it. I have a problem I have to solve with the disc brake spacers and stuff, but there's like great problems you can solve and there's great stories to tell every single day in a bike shop. So that's one of the great things about opening a bike shop is that I created a live studio and
Mhm.
I may very well put a Twitch stream in my mechanics bay and have a screen up there. And as we're fixing bikes over the summer, people can Twitch us or TikTok live us and talk to us, or we'll chat with them while they're fixing bikes. I mean, I don't know. I'm
Yep.
willing to play around, but I also do all the social media stuff with Meta. I do TikTok, and my TikTok is getting huge.
Mhm.
Not huge, but to me, it's huge. Having videos that I didn't pay for that are getting 40,000 views is huge to me.
Mhm.
And they're all wheelies, me trying to learn how to do a wheelie at 51 on an
Nice.
SC bike. But the kids love it. The
Yeah.
kids are loving it. But yeah, I use AI for some of this stuff. Like Russ. For instance, when you upload your YouTube video and you wait a bit and you get that transcript, you can see that transcript. I just copy that transcript. I go to Chat GPT, load that transcript, tell Chat GPT, write me a video title and a video description from this transcript. Boom, done. And apply the hashtags, done. Now Chat GPT 4.0, the last couple of videos have been playing around, I've been iterating through AI imagery for
Mm-hmm.
my thumbnails.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been doing a much better job than it did a year ago. A year ago, it was awful, but now it's starting to get pretty good. And then same thing with all my social media posts and stuff. I'll write the social media posts, but ChatGPT will do a much better job rewriting it for me. So it's
Mm-hmm.
my thoughts and ideas. And then as I'm iterating through ChatGPT, it's telling me like stuff because it's saving all of our conversations and using that as a historical database.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm uploading my sales data and say, hey, ChatGPT, what are my best hours to be open as a bike shop? Hey, Aaron, no problem. These are your best hours to be open. Great. If I was to close one day a week, what day would that be? Oh, easy, Thursday. Close Thursday over the winter and change your Saturday hours to this because you make more early morning sales on Saturday. I mean, it's doing amazing stuff.
Right.
But when you first go into ChatGPT, it's clumsy because it
Yeah.
doesn't know anything about you. But I
Yeah.
could go in now and just tell it to write me a business plan and it would. It's really amazing. But YouTube, social media, you gotta pump it out. I mean, it's just people want to see this stuff. They want authentic stuff. They I think people are turning away from like the big corporate commercials that are trying to influence you. Like people just want to see a regular person doing regular things. I mean, it's Twitch is weird to me, but I'll put it this way. You look at the data. There was a lady that did 3 cheese mozzarella sticks with chilies, made a TikTok video. Big old thing of string cheese.
Right.
Everybody started doing it.
Yeah.
Chili's revenue increased 41% last year or this
Wow.
year.
That's crazy.
41%
Yeah.
off of people just making TikToks that Chili's didn't even pay for.
Right.
A lady who owns a pizza shop has a Twitch stream going up in her pizza shop. She is making money off of people just watching her employees make pizzas
Right.
and interacting with people on Twitch. This is the disruption with business.
Right.
It's so wild. And if you're not on social media, I mean, I think that's part of the old
Yeah.
school stuff. I mean, it really is. People want to buy into you. They want to buy into your shop. They want to see what you're doing. They want to be part of your team. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's different. It's a lot different.
Yeah. I feel like people have a level of media literacy that they didn't have 20 years ago. They know when they're being spun a tale, and we're being constantly bombarded with that. So what's new and refreshing is like the behind the scenes stuff. Or there's this phrase I learned a couple months ago called internet ugly, where it is that kind of rawness and authenticity that's not like a super polished video piece or something.
Yeah.
And it's what
Yeah.
people crave.
Well, Russ, that's why I think you're doing very well. And I mean, the stuff you do is like very unique to you and people love it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that is the future of media. Like, I think that is where we're going, where people are less likely to spend time watching the evening news. They would rather spend their half hour watching Russ do something weird with a friction shifter.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's where it's going. Like, and it's great because before, back when we were younger, like we didn't have these opportunities. It was just
Mm-hmm.
turned on the TV. You had however many channels you had, but now you have all these different people, all these different creators that actually can make a living doing what they like to do. I mean, even though, I mean, it can turn into a grind at times, but because you're always like, I got to put more content out. I got to put more content out.
Yeah.
But it's just so different. And the viewer now wants something real. They want a real person. They want to
Mm-hmm.
hear their real thoughts. Not everybody will agree with you, but yeah, they just want something more real. Yeah, not marketing agencies figuring out how to
Yeah.
manipulate you, I think.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the Go Grava YouTube channel or follow them on Instagram. If you want to see more of this content, once again, join us on Patreon or pick up some merch. That's how we keep the literal lights on. And as always, keep the supple side down.